And welcome into the Thursday edition, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you. Hope everybody's off to a great start on this Thursday morning. We got a lot to get into today. We will react all show long to day one of Titans training camp on the field yesterday, get into a little Vols action later as well. And as he does every Thursday morning, Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports will be with us at 8 o'clock for his weekly visit. We'll get into all things Tennessee Titans and the biggest storylines around the National Football League with him coming up at 8 o'clock. So thanks for being with us this morning. Joe Rexrode, how we doing? What's going on?
Good. I got my notebook, so I got some really sweet observations for you. Also, we may need to, it's up to you guys. I'll leave it up to you guys. Gentry Estes is in Paris at the Olympics for the Tennessean, and he's covering archery right now. So he's tweeting archery. I told him we may need to call him.
Might have to.
There's some, yep. So just stay apprised of the archery beat.
Yeah, I mean, you never know what could happen in the archery meet. Is it a meet? A gathering? A gallery? What do we call this thing?
That's a good question. An archery.
Is it a match?
I don't know. I'm asking the question.
That's a really good question. An archery.
Gentry, the first question we have for you. What do you call this thing?
I think it's a match, right?
Sure.
I think that would be right. But yeah, sometimes it's like a pride of lions. Like, why would it be a pride of lions?
Yeah.
So maybe it's an archery
flock.
Yeah, right. Something just totally random.
If
anybody out there knows, let us know.
I see round.
Ooh, archery soiree.
If it's not that, I think it should be that.
An archery round?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, there you go. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
There we go.
Weird.
Well, we'll have to get Gentry's thoughts on that.
So, we'll see.
Minutes.
Yeah, Gentry, be ready. I told him to be ready by the phone.
Keyser, how we doing? What's going on?
Doing well. Can't complain. Had a fun night for breakfast last night, so loving that. A little bit of Cracker Barrel at home.
Okay.
Keyser style.
Breakfast.
Yeah.
Breakfast for dinner.
Breakfast for dinner.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good stuff.
Very good.
Wait. So you're saying you got Cracker Barrel takeout, or you?
No. Like it was Keyser style. Like we made our own.
He's
yeah.
saying his stuff is as good as Cracker Barrel, Robbie.
That's a pretty lofty standard.
Not as good.
That's a bold statement.
Our own style.
Pretty lofty standard.
Corned beef hash, I hope.
God, no.
Has not been on the menu at Cracker Barrel, but maybe something that needs to be adjusted.
You were. I'm sure that was Michelle was producing when I had my.
I know about the beef, literally. Yes.
Yes, it was.
Do you like corned beef hash?
I haven't had it. I have not had it in a while, but I think I would like it.
I mean, everybody in the world loves it.
Isn't it canned?
Well, you can be, or you can actually make corned beef and potatoes and
all that stuff.
It does sound good.
Oh, it is. Don't get me started. Robbie knows.
It is.
Don't get me started.
Let me tell you.
Sounds like gout in the can.
Wow.
Well,
it was right back to
it probably didn't. Yeah, probably didn't help.
Day one of Titans training camp on the field yesterday. Rexrode was there. He's got his notepad. He's ready to go. I'm sure just full of takes from yesterday and day one on the field for the Tennessee Titans. Joe, what stood out to you yesterday the most over at Titans training camp?
So first of all, I mean, for anybody who's listening who hasn't been, I guess paying attention since then. So the news items would be, I think to me, the biggest news item is L'Jarius Sneed on the field, and he did everything, and he looked good. So that's good. Whatever the management will be, it's not. He never practices, so that's been established. Good. Yes. Devondre Sweat also, I thought, looked good. I didn't confuse him with Mr. Olympia or anything, but I mean, he looked to be in fine shape, similar to like rookie minicamp, moving extremely well. So, after practice, Devondre got 18 different types of questions related to his weight. I mean, Glennon tried like 4 different ways to ask him how much he weighs, I think. So
Glennon's putting in the work.
Glennon is persistent. But I thought he looked good, and I thought that, I mean, good in terms of, look, what happened yesterday, a little bit of 7-on-7. They did do some team, and so they had 1s versus 1s, and you've got Sneed pressing Ridley, and you've got Sneed and Hopkins. I mean, so you had some great matchups briefly, for a few snaps, which was fun to see. But I can go through the notebook if you want. Let's see.
Well, you got it here. Why would you just go through it?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. My first one, as I'm standing next to Jared, Sadiq Charles just absolutely paints the field with his stomach. I mean, it was, and then he kept going and going, and they're like, "Hey, let's go this way now, away from the puke." So this always happens.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Wasn't even that hot yesterday.
Well, that's the thing. It was the beginning of practice, and it was cool and cloudy.
Yeah.
I'm like, good thing it wasn't 93 and
Buddy, you could be in
blazing
trouble.
sun like you normally see out here. Yeah. So I think someone else said someone else. This happens, right? I mean, I'm sure people out there. I know I've been first day of basketball practice. I've found the trash can. I mean, running those sprints. I mean, you know, we've been there. A lot of people have been there. Let's see. Sevens. Levis made a quick second read, beautiful pass to Chig over the middle. There's one of my notes. I got Roger McCreary, Tyler Boyd, great matchup. That's a matchup we haven't talked about, but you think about nickel slot, and that's good.
Yeah.
Roger McCreary, Tyler Boyd, very good matchup. Levis got it to Boyd in as tight a window as you could get. I mean, short pass, but very good coverage. That's a good one. I got Wiley beats Kenneth Murray for a quick out. This is all Levis throwing in 7-on-7. Then I counted up Rudolph and Malik. They are getting the same reps from what I could count up. I got Rudolph getting one to Kyle Phillips quickly. I got him getting one to Mason Kinsey, Chig, and then Vanette, the third tight end, who fumbled. There were a few fumbles in 7-on-7, which was weird. Malik, Thomas Odukoya made a great catch. We've heard, Thomas Odukoya's name a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
He's interesting. Mason Kinsey. Bryce Oliver, who's, one of the guys in camp with a fumble. So let's go back to Will Levis in sevens. I got Boyd had a drop. Now, I was told by the other that was Levis's throw was the problem. And Levis missed a couple in 7-on-7. He was not absolutely pinpoint every time. He finally had to check down to the running back after a long time, which it was one of those, like, you got to just get rid of the ball. Quick one to Boyd. And then a really nice slant to Traylon Burks, who fell after it, but he got some yards after the catch, and then he fell on the grass, but it was a nice play. Let's see. I don't have a ton. The team stuff is the best stuff. There's some trash talk. Hopkins was over there talking some serious trash to Simmons and those guys, which was fun to watch. Ones versus ones team, Levis. Beautiful over the middle, intermediate throw against a zone look to DeAndre Hopkins, like a really nice, quick boom, boom. I think it might have been his first. I think it might have been his second read too. I can't say. I have notes here on like who's lining up where, which I can't say. But we all know that Nicholas Petit-Frere wasn't there.
Correct.
So who would be the right tackle today if they started? I'll take a guess that maybe John Ojukwu would be,
yes,
which is interesting and maybe not comforting. But, he is a guy who has impressed some people. Levis threw in front of Ridley too much on an in cut, and Roger McCreary was there for the pick. Ridley played great defense to keep that from being a pick. That was the one, I would say, bad throw Levis made in team. He made an incredible throw on a deep out to NWI, of course, Nick Westbrook-Akine. Between two defenders, the timing, the precision, all that. It was one of those, like, the whole field's like, oh, type thing. Very good play. Jamal Adams. It's one day, so Jamal Adams may start at safety. Who knows? We're going to talk about him later. But he was running around. He had a blitz and where he basically would have sacked Levis, and he looked good. I mean, he timed it up. He looked fast. Actually, they didn't call a sack, so Levis actually threw a great pass on the play downfield to the sideline, and Ridley just flat out dropped a perfect pass. So we got a Ridley drop. We got a Jamal Adams blitz. And then the last note I have is a pass over the middle, just basically checking down to NWI. Dr. Jack with a sweet PBU. He's right in the middle of that defense. People can complain about it. He is who is he? I mean, he's the defense's NWI.
Yeah.
He is Cole Smith of the Titans, whatever you want to say. I think Jack Gibbons probably can play some football this year.
Probably so. So some good observations there from day one of Titans training camp. Like you said, really good to see L'Jarius Sneed on the field. I quite frankly didn't expect that heading into yesterday. So good to see him on the field. Devondre Sweat being out there, being available, being mobile, all those things is good. And now it's, we're gonna break down practice every day, and there's gonna be different takes, and Levis is gonna play well some days, not play well other days. We know all that stuff and how training camp goes. But part of the story here is like, all right, how often will Sneed be out there? Can Sweat keep himself out there? Can you avoid some major injuries in training camp, which are, if you look around the league, already starting to happen? I mean, the Vikings had one yesterday with a torn ACL. So already starting to happen throughout the league. Can you avoid those things? And, can you get to a spot where by the time the first game rolls around that you're feeling really comfortable with what you're doing out there? But sounds like Levis was relatively sharp yesterday.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, he missed a couple in sevens where it's like, I mean, every quarterback misses throws.
Yep.
It wasn't like there were a couple days in the spring where it was like, man, he's just sailed, 3 of the last 5 passes or something like that. You know what I mean? It was a little bit, and I think it's probably a combination of, one, he has been working on the base and the mechanics, but 2, also probably the offense.
Yeah.
So he missed a couple, but then during team, it was good. It was quick. He looked like he has the answers. I mean, like I said, there was one time in 7 where he probably should have let something rip, and he finally just checked down to the back where it's like, at that point, that's too much time. But in team, yeah, it was a good day for him, I would say.
615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll take your questions on the Tennessee Titans training camp underway for the Titans on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on the Tennessee Titans on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. We'll have the best and worst things in sports as well coming up at 6:45, so we'll take your best things, your worst things on our text line, 615-737-1025, as Rexrode's trying to get his audio figured out over there.
Yep. Got it muted.
Got
this muted, got me unmuted. We're all set. Maybe I should tweet. Yeah, I almost never, I'm almost off Twitter, man.
I've noticed you, there's a reduction in tweets.
I don't know. It's just so weird. The whole place is so weird.
There's no doubt. But your time of year to shine really is here now, with your opportunity to take some video out there on the Titans practice field. And it's really your time of year.
I took none yesterday.
I know, it's really disappointing.
I wanted to watch, and then it was like, oh, I guess I could have taken. Remember, we can only take video of like the stretching, basically.
Yes.
It's individual drills. I'll get you some, though. Don't worry.
Good. Look forward to it.
Yeah.
Kyle from Shelbyville wanting to know, how did Cedric Gray look yesterday?
Is that what he asked?
That's what he originally asked, how did the rookie linebacker Brown look?
Green, red. Yeah. So I don't have a good answer for you. I'll be honest. Like, one day, the thing is, I mean, you really do. You got to pick what you're going to focus on.
Yeah.
I really can't say I noticed anything good or bad from him, but give it some time over a couple weeks before they get to the preseason game, and then everybody can see what they're doing. I think. I mean, especially this team. Apparently, we're really going to see what they're doing in that first preseason game.
I guess so.
But at this point, I was really obviously focusing on the DB receiver stuff, and a little bit looking at like Sweat up front and things like that. So I don't have much for you on Gray. But it'll be interesting.
How did Sweat move? How did he look out there?
Yeah, like I thought he moved pretty well. I thought, again, I don't. And Jeff Simmons said afterward, in a very interesting press conference for him.
Yes.
But he said afterward, the same of him too, but he can get in better shape, and I think he can. I don't think Tavondre Sweat is like in absolute max shape, and it's like, I mean, the big question with him is, okay, so how many snaps can you go in games? Can you be out there consistently and play like a big snap count in these games? And with what he brings, if he can, I think it could be pretty good for the Titans. But that I don't, obviously I have no idea based on yesterday. But I thought he moved well. He seems to be in reasonable shape. He can probably get in better shape. And there is a good 6-week period here before game starts. So if it's all good from here to there, then I think you're going to have a player ready to make a difference.
You brought up the Jeffrey Simmons press conference yesterday, and Jared Stillman trying to get him to talk about his Twitter beef that he had after the immediate aftermath of the Jamal Adams signing a couple of weeks ago. Simmons shutting that down rather quickly, did not want to get into those conversations, said he was not going to talk about it. What did you make of that response, that exchange between Stilly and Jeffrey Simmons yesterday?
Do we have that, Nick? Do you have that readily available, by the way? So, first of all, you got it. All right. Well, let me set this up. So I'm right behind Kaharski, and then Jared's right next to him. And it's like Robby Boren, Titans PR is like, okay, 2 more questions. And Kaharski turns to me and it's like glares, and I'm like, shut up. Turn your head around. Because, of course, I promised I would ask, which I was going to.
Yep.
I was planning to all along. I didn't, I figured let's let them answer like football questions that people give a crap about, and then we'll get into our little media stuff. So as I was about to ask a question, you may be able to hear me say, bleh, but then Jared barks out his question, and here we go.
Speaking of Twitter, you a couple weeks ago had some criticism for us.
Not speaking on that. I'm moving on.
Oh, there you go. Not speaking on that. Moving on. I tried, and my question, we had this on Jared versus Joe, another win for me as we come back from break.
Well done.
What's that?
Well done.
Thank you. Kaharski then yelled at Jared afterward, and he's like, "Your question was terrible." or whatever he said. I was not that mean to Jerry. I was like, yeah, like here's the thing. If you start into like, well, speaking of Twitter, you better get it out fast.
Yep.
That's all I'm saying. My question was going to be, who are you mad at in the media and why? That's it. Who are you mad at in the media and why? And the thing is, like I told Jared, see, first of all, that's open-ended. So it's not a yes/no question. It's quick. It hangs there and he has it. And I think that might even be one of those questions where he thinks it's funny a little bit and maybe he gives some kind of an answer.
He did not give an answer yesterday.
He probably, I mean, Jared's probably right. He probably would have shut that down too, or any question about it, but it still would have been better than, speaking of Twitter, whatever.
Yeah.
Nope, you're shut down. So as far as like what this means, I mean, I don't care anymore. Like he tweeted what he tweeted.
It's really not that big a deal.
It's not. And like,
now I will say, like, if you're not going to talk about it, that's fine. Stop tweeting. You know, like if you're not going to talk about it, like I have no problem with Jeffrey Simmons not wanting to get into that in a public setting yesterday, but stop tweeting about it.
Yeah.
Like if you don't want to talk about it, then don't tweet about it.
Yeah, I think the things that a lot of people have said, including Paul, are dead on. It's just like, okay, I mean, if you have a problem, first of all, go ahead. Someone ticked you off? Go
Clearly.
tell them.
Yeah.
You shut up. It's okay. The social media, people yell at each other all day long on that thing. You're allowed to say, hey, how about Sam? I'm going to pick on Sam Finley. You know, he was on Survivor.
Was he really?
Yes. That's why he's been gone. He's on Survivor.
I did not know that.
I know. It's going to be
awesome.
coming up on TV. I can't wait. Yeah, maybe he was, hey, Sam, shut up. You know, that's fine. Be specific and then drop it. But I agree with you. It's like, just this is, I think it's a distraction. I've heard the case, which is actually it is in the building. It's leadership to just defend your teammates or anybody against me, and that's fine. But it's like, it's just
like I don't think this is some referendum on Jeffrey Simmons or his leadership or anything like that. But like I will say, like if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. Then just don't tweet about it. Just as Herm Edwards used to say, don't press send. That's all we ask for. Just don't press send.
Yeah, I mean it's right. It was just a weird. And again, the weirdness of it was like, so you're not allowed to say, I'm not sure if this is a great signing. If you say that, you hate the Titans.
Yeah, I mean
okay. But as far as like any kind of referendum on him as a leader for this team, it really means nothing to me. I don't think it means anything. And of course, Jared took it there yesterday. Shocking, I know. David in Arkansas said, "You think it's because he doesn't like Stillman since he hasn't blocked? If it were you, Joe, or anyone else, you think he would have shut it down?" I will say, and Jared acknowledged this too yesterday. Jared asked two questions to Jeff. After looking at Jeff, looking at Jared when he started to ask a question, I'm not surprised he hasn't blocked. He doesn't like Jared.
I think it's pretty clear.
Which again is interesting because Jared doesn't go in the locker room, but Stilly's reputation precedes him.
I thought he gave Kuharski a couple of pretty good answers yesterday.
It was a good presser.
Yeah.
It's fine. I just would, for my own curiosity, I'd love to know who he's talking about. Going in the locker room, pretend to be your friend, all buddy.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I don't. It's like, who would this be? Because that's not Kuharski.
Definitely not Kuharski.
It's not Stilly either. It's not either member of the Stilly and Pauly show. So I don't know. And I didn't really.
You.
I didn't. Did I tweet about Jamal Adams?
I don't think so.
So I don't even. I don't like to tweet. This is why I don't want people yelling at me. So I'd love to know that answer. But like what this means for Titans football or Jeff as a leader, I mean, it means like nothing, right? It's just us in a big circle thing.
It is 615-737-1025
life.
615-737-1025. We'll have more on the Titans coming up next, including a member of the Titans that apparently Joe has very quickly changed his mind on. We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game.
love the game. I started playing football at age 3. Obviously, my father, I don't know if you guys know, he played with the Giants. His career was cut short due to injury. I started at age 3, and I've always loved the game. You know what I mean? It's never been about money for me. Obviously, that comes with it, with great play. But for me, it's just the love of the game.
That's Jamal Adams yesterday, the newest member of the Tennessee Titans, making his practice debut on the field for the Titans at training camp yesterday. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Joe, sounds like you were pretty impressed with what you saw from Jamal Adams yesterday.
Jamal Adams' press conference yesterday was borderline awesome. It was really good. And so I must say, after watching him on the field and watching his presser, my mind has been changed to some extent, okay? A few things. First of all, none of this changes. Like, if anyone on that side of things or on this side of things, media or, players, coaches, whatever, anyone ever attacks a family member, spouse, girlfriend, anything like that of someone, that's absolutely inexcusable. And so I cannot get past that. That's awful. However, I was impressed with him yesterday. His enthusiasm, even on the field, you can kind of see it. I feel like it's probably going to be a good thing for the Titans. You can look back at Seattle, and, he was talking about some of the guys he's really close with still and all that, including Quandre Diggs, who he basically confirmed that. I think he confirmed that the Titans are in the mix for Quandre Diggs.
Yeah.
He said, I hope we get him. I suspect he's probably had a conversation or two with Rand Carthon about that. So that's an interesting little nugget from the presser. But it was
all the safeties in the world, man. A lot of depth at safety coming up.
Hey, can't have too many safeties. But he was and listening to him talk about the injuries and stuff, I don't think I knew it was serious, but he's talking about 10 to 15 weeks, I think he said, like he couldn't shower on his own, or he's in a wheelchair. It was, it's like a quad, but it's like a really, really bad injury where like severe injury. So you could trace that and say, okay, how much time does that take to recover from? Maybe you don't. Or maybe, you're eventually at your best going to be 80% of what you were, but maybe last year he was 60. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he sounded optimistic that he's getting better in that way, which of course, that's going to take away your explosiveness, your speed, your twitch, all that stuff. Will he get it back? I don't know. But again, I thought it was a good presser. I was impressed with him, and watching him on the field, I can see where he could be a chess piece for this defense.
Yeah. I still think anybody who's just writing his name down in pen as the starting safety alongside Amani Hooker, I wouldn't get too far ahead of your skis yet on that thing. Hopefully he gets through camp healthy and shows enough where he is the starting safety at the end. That'd be great, right? That he shows enough where it's like, wow, okay, we got to put him out there. He's got to be a significant factor for this defense. I do think, number one, I agree with you. I thought the dig stuff that he brought up was pretty interesting, and we'll see if the Titans end up acting on that. But number two, to me, if he gets back to being a player, we've talked about the pass rush and the ability to get after the quarterback. And, we had TD on in the immediate aftermath of the Jamal Adams signing, and he talked about his ability to get after the quarterback. Now, he hadn't really put that on display in a few years because of the injuries and everything that's gone on with him and his body. But if he gets back to a place where he's kind of that box safety linebacker hybrid, whatever you want to call it, that could be effective getting after the passer. Because look, I saw a lot of people yesterday talking about him and how he looks quick and he looks fast, and that's good. I still don't think in the heyday of Jamal Adams' career, it's ever been like, yeah, that's who you want back all alone in coverage, right?
No,
so
right.
I don't think that's just going to magically take place now where he's like some lockdown cover safety back there.
But he did used to wreck some offenses.
He did.
Yeah.
So if he can get back to being maybe not full Jamal Adams and what we saw in the past before all the injuries and what that was, But if you can find a way, if you're Denard Wilson, and that's the other thing that stood out to me in his press conference yesterday, clearly I think he's pretty comfortable here with some of the guys that he knows and has a past with. If he can get back to being somebody that's a disruptor, and maybe it's not even an every down thing, but a disruptor in a sub package, then I think you'll take that at this point if you're the Titans, especially given what you're paying him.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. And I think, I'm just speculating, just guessing, that maybe in certain packages he might line up at the second level for this defense. It's just me guessing out of nowhere for no reason at all. I'm just taking guesses today.
Just seeing what sticks.
Yeah. No, I mean, and look, Brian Callahan talked about that the other day, right? I mean, it's pretty obvious. And even Adams, basically confirmed, he talked about how Seattle wanted to change positions. I mean, some people do look at him as a little bit more of like a linebacker. So, like in a heavier package, could you swap in for one of your corners or something like that? Or you could just play linebacker. I mean, it's going to be interesting. I think
Jamal Adams and Dr. Jack side by side out there getting after the defense.
There you go.
Getting after the offense.
Could be. How about Jamal Adams with green dot? A lot of green
Maybe
dot
so.
talk. Let's talk about the green dot.
Maybe so.
No, I don't think that in all seriousness. Now, unless, and maybe you're right. Someone made the point yesterday watching. It's like, well, Elijah Molden, I still believe. I think he'll be the starting safety, and I think he and Hooker will be the safeties. But someone made the point. It's like, so basically, like Molden's best and Jamal Adams' worst. Like, where do those cross paths? You know what I mean? I mean, obviously, we haven't seen a lot from Molden in the NFL. I think we've seen some good stuff from him. We've seen mostly injuries. We've seen really good stuff from Jamal Adams, but it's been a while. But I like a pickup after yesterday, just in terms of it's super cheap, and he brings credibility. He brings relationship with Wilson, and I feel like he is going to be a positive force on the defense. And I just look, all I really knew of him, because I've never had any personal interaction, was that he left last year after he wasn't active for one of those games. But it's one of those things, like if you have beef, like if you're not like this frequent disruptor in the locker room, sometimes people have you got to give somebody a mulligan for that. Again, I don't care if Satan is covering you. You don't go after Satan's wife. Okay. So like that's but that's what you knew too. I think he's going to be a good addition, and then we'll see how extensive that'll be in football terms.
He fits into this conversation too in terms of how you could use him. And I know it's one day of camp, but it's just the philosophy as a whole. Everybody talks about aggression. We've talked with Kuharski about how aggressive this defense is going to be. What do you think that's actually going to look like from Denard Wilson's standpoint of him being a first-time defensive play caller, first-time defensive coordinator? What aggressiveness with this defense? What does that look like? Are they blitzing every play? Are they what do we think it's going to look like for the Titans?
That's a great question. I think at some point in the next few weeks we should have Ted Gwynn on from The Athletic, because he wrote a huge X's and O's piece on this defense. And actually, it's not that. It's not as just blatantly straight out aggressive as some people think. It's a really interesting piece, and it goes into it's a complex defense. So yeah, I think the aggressive part of it is the corners. I think of course they're going to blitz, but it's just like any D coordinator. D coordinators would love to not blitz, right? D coordinators would love to see Sweat and Simmons blow the pocket up every time, help the edge guys, and be able to get pressure with 4 as much as possible. But I think the aggression will be in Snead, in a Woozy, in McCreary, and how they in certain defenses man up some of these receivers. I think that'll look a lot different. But yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I have to refresh on that article, but it's really interesting, like the nuances of aggression and fake aggression, I guess, at times,
Yeah, because I think when I think aggressiveness on defense and the way that everybody's talked about this, and look, we know they are going to blitz, and I don't think it's going to be as extensive as some people have made it out to be, but I think boom or bust on defense when I think of that. Like you're probably going to make a lot of plays, and you're probably going to get torched a few times as well. And like trying to find that like look, every defense with the way the rules are set up and the talent of other offenses is going to get torched to some degree in today's NFL, but like trying to strike that balance of when to be aggressive, when not to be, how do you not get burned more often than not if you're Denard Wilson? Like I'm really interested to see how that comes together this year. And particularly, like, we've talked about safety, particularly if you're not feeling great about your safety spot at that point, like how does that manifest itself into preventing explosive plays down the field?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's I mean it always sounds great. I swear this is another one of those, how we always talk about, "Oh, those last coaches were stupid.
Yeah.
These new coaches are amazing." I also feel like every time there's a coaching change, I can't remember a coaching change in football where it was like, this new defense, we're going to really read and react and be real careful.
Yeah.
It's always like, now we're attacking,
Yeah.
I mean, everybody wants to attack, but yeah, it's not that simple. But if you have corners who can throw receivers off their routes, throw off the timing, and not get absolutely torched doing it, and if you can really give people problems in the interior, that's two things that everything else in your defense should really benefit from.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll take your best things and worst things in the world of sports on our text line. The best and worst things in sports coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. It is time for the best and worst things in sports. We'll take your best things, your worst things for this week in sports on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Joe Rexrode, kick us off with your best and worst things in the world of sports.
So my best now has to be honorable mention. It was going to be the WNBA All-Star Game, which I watched in its entirety last weekend, making it like the first All-Star game in sports that I can remember since
the 1980s.
Like, seriously, I mean, the 90s, I still watch the NBA All-Star game too. The 92 one, like Magic came back. Of course, he had announced he was HIV positive earlier in that year. And he came back, and that was pretty cool. That was pretty awesome. But like, yeah, we're talking 30-ish years since I don't watch any All-Star games. Now, this was a different one because it's the Olympic team against the remaining All-Stars, and you've got Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese on and they kicked their butt, by the way. They kicked their butt. But it was enthralling. But that's my honorable mention. My actual best, I just watched Simone Biles stick the vault, and she's the best in sports, the Olympics, but she's the best in sports. She is the greatest athlete in American history. Thank you. Goodbye. End of discussion. You have no argument. That's my take. I dare anyone to try to argue with me on that. I have some buddies who
archery.
I got somebody like
I've seen some good archers.
Babe Ruth. I mean, let's just stop it. Yeah,
the good archery team.
Yeah. Well, I can't say that I know the history of archers that well, but
handball.
Simone Biles is the greatest athlete of all time in American history. My worst. Look, best. I'm sure one of you. I saved football for you because training camp starting, so I saved it for you. But there is a worst to that to me. And that is what we're doing already is just the complete overreaction and ultimately misinformation. We need to do probably a better job. I know some things stand out even from last year, but of keeping track of our takes,
in camp.
Yeah. And then going back and laughing at them because there are so many things that turn out to be like, this guy could be key, or, wow, this, I think this guy's making the team, or, Traylon Burks is due for a big year, whatever it is. So that is my worst, the overreaction, but it's kind of a soft worst because it's still fun, and we're glad that there's any kind of football here, right?
Yes, we are. Nick Keyser, your best and worst things in the world of sports.
Well, I did get to play hockey between our last edition and now, so that's fun. But no, I want to say that, Joe Rexrode knows all too well. So the Steve McNair project that's coming up on Netflix, I'm excited for that. It'll premiere on August 20th. A little backstory personally that I have to the McNairs. I actually got to hang out with his sons a few years after the incident happened with his wife, or not his wife, but that's I won't comment.
His murder.
Just his murder. Yes. Totally botched the detail there, but I don't recall that. But Trenton Tyler, I remember hanging out with them. This will be cool to see him featured for his big Super Bowl run back in 2000. So very curious to see how that does. So back in 5th grade, me getting to hang out with them, that was pretty cool. But my worst in sports is Deshaun Foster. Oh my gosh. Yesterday, his comments at media days, I don't even know what that was. I really don't have words for that. And then also, on a sub note, what is Harbaugh doing out in LA? These coaches are on one for sure.
We need to play the Harbaugh thing today. We got to play that at some point. Deshaun Foster for UCLA. For those who don't know, he talked for 1 minute and 12 seconds, and it was like, "What's up, y'all? We're UCLA. We play football. We're in the city of Los Angeles."
So bad.
USC is also there.
Excited for football.
Thank you. It was interesting. It was like Robby and I were talking. It's like, meanwhile, sometimes you'll have like Dan Mullen comes up there and he's like controversy, and he goes through every member of the roster, so you can't ask any questions. So there's a happy medium. This was
hello.
This was extreme.
We are at UCLA.
Hi.
That is in the state of California. Your questions, please.
I like football. Do you like football?
My best in sports is football is back. Kind of.
There you go.
That is my best in sports. My worst in sports, along with football being back, this is my favorite time of year in terms of practice overreaction. I've talked about this before. For some reason, the NFL, this is the one sport, and I guess you can throw college football in there too, where we really do this all the time. I think it's because of how football obsessed we are in this country, and everybody wants to know, like, how does so-and-so look? Like, we're getting questions all over the text line today about, like, random members of the Titans who have
David Martin Robinson.
They have, like, no chance of making the team. It's like, I get it. We're all football obsessed. But I bring up this example often. Like, I don't ever remember in my life going to a Nashville Predators practice and watching Philip Forsberg, like, miss a shot and miss an open net and being like, well, guys, Forsberg missed an open net. What does it mean for him? Like, how's that gonna affect tomorrow's game against Columbus with Forsberg missing an open net? And yet we'll look at everything that happens on the practice field. It's like, well, this must mean this is going to directly translate to the game. Everything we see on practice field directly translates to the game. It's always fascinating to me this time of year in football.
Yes.
Happens every year.
It does. It does indeed. All right. I think we need to enter Jim Harbaugh into the discussion.
Okay.
Just the way it feels. I mean, feels like New Year's Day, feels like being born. Feels like coming out of the womb, it's like you're in there and it's comfortable and it's safe. And now you're out, you're born, the lights are on, it's bright, got chaos, people looking at you, people talking at you. And just feels good to, have it happen.
Thank you, Jim.
What
Happy
is wrong with you, Harbaugh? I'm in the womb. I
like
really enjoyed my time in the womb.
It's like birth. That's what training camp is like.
And
birth.
I'm trying to work on my drops, and it's like, could you please cut this umbilical cord? After birth, the ball slips out of my hand. I mean, what's going on? Football, birth.
I'll tell you what,
a freaking weirdo.
It would not be boring to cover Jim Harbaugh. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah. But the thing is, though, he actually 90% of the time says nothing. It's just like a brick wall of ugh. And then randomly he'll
have that.
And you're like half asleep, and then you're like, whoa, oh my God. He's just talking about being in the womb.
Well, you know that you didn't really fire it up. Just start talking about the offensive line. It's the key to all football. The offensive line.
Yes.
We thought he was joking in the draft process, and it turns out he wasn't.
He was.
They're going to get every offensive lineman possible.
He was not kidding. Yeah. I mean, actually, I'm going to follow closely along with their camp. How many touchdown passes to offensive tackles are they throwing? You know?
I mean, probably a significant amount. Trent says the worst in sports. Yesterday's Jared versus Joe with a smiley face.
Well, that's because Trent is. These people are trying to, they're trying to argue with me on Simone Biles. Michael Phelps is absolutely in the discussion. Okay. But don't give me the medal count. Do you understand how many more opportunities to win medals there are in swimming? Do you understand? Do we need to go through the events? I can do that for you. Simone Biles being in the Olympics right now is like a freaking quarterback at 73 being an all-pro, okay? Not to mention that if Michael Phelps or any of these other athletes tried to do what Simone Biles did, they would die. They would die. This discussion's over. Sorry.
No, you're welcome.
Long fuse.
It's all good. Long fuse is on display again. I don't agree that she's the greatest athlete in American history, but she's probably up there. It's fine.
You can be wrong, too. You can all be wrong together.
615-737-1025. Chase McCabe, the greatest athlete in American history.
Well,
I think we've all seen that.
He is.
Cap.
He is an
Certainly the
athlete
most
of
unique.
Incredible vintage.
Yes.
It's hard to imagine
It's hard to replicate.
an athlete quite like him.
615-737-1025, our phone number. We'll switch gears, get into a little college football coming up next. How does Nico Iamaleava, I'm going to butcher that all year long.
You got this.
Like I nailed it the second time, though.
Yamaleava.
How does he live up to the hype this season? What constitutes Nico living up to the hype for the Vols? We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Thursday morning. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports will be with us to begin the 8 o'clock hour. We'll get into all things Tennessee Titans and the top stories in the National Football League with him as well. Taking your thoughts, 615-737-1025. The Olympics have begun, which is always fascinating that they begin every year or every Olympics before the actual opening ceremonies. It always kind of drives me nuts.
Yeah,
but they do.
It's a little different. A little different.
We're watching some rugby sevens right now. It's a rough sport, baby. Rough sport.
You watch these guys smash into each other, and it's amazing. Like, how is the injury rate not with no pads and stuff? I mean, it's just
unbelievable. Good stuff, though.
It is good stuff.
I'll watch it. I will watch me some rugby sevens. The Tennessee Vols are scheduled to begin fall camp in less than a week. So a week from yesterday, I believe, is their first day on the practice field. And August 31st, they'll kick things off against Chattanooga, an intriguing non-conference game against NC State. And we've talked a lot about the SEC schedule this year with Oklahoma on the docket and Alabama and Georgia, and see if they can actually beat Florida this year. A lot of things to watch for as it relates to Tennessee. Can they make the college football playoff? And then on top of all of that, you have Nico Maliava as the starting quarterback with a ton of hype, a ton of, I guess I would say, pressure on him this year heading into his first full year as a starting quarterback. For five-star quarterback is thought to be a high NFL pick when his time comes up in the NFL draft. And there's going to be heavy expectation on Nico and this offense this year. So we've talked about this, Joe. Like, I think if he replicated what Hendon Hooker did in 2021 or 2022, that'd be a pretty darn good year for Nico Iamaleava. How realistic is that he can do something like that? I don't know at this stage of his career. If he can, then Tennessee is probably going to be in pretty good shape this season. But there's going to be heavy expectation on this kid taking over as the starting quarterback. So how do you view, number one, the hype that is around him right now? And number two, how does he go about living up to that hype as he enters into his first year as starting quarterback for Tennessee?
Well, first of all, it's just so early. It could go so many different ways, you know. I think he does have the ability that, you know, he could, in theory, be, a prominent draft pick in 2026. That is right? It is 2026.
That is correct.
Yeah, the 2026 draft. I mean, I think it's
him and Arch Manning going back to back.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible that he is that kind of guy. And he can be, and you know what? I have not seen him play week in, week out against NFL players. He played against a good defense in Iowa, and it was a nice performance, and it was promising. And it's exactly where you want to be as a true freshman. We accelerate all these things, but how many people are really ready to be great as true freshmen when they step up to college football? How many people are really ready to be great as rookie quarterbacks when they step up to the NFL? I think it's a perfect, even though it was a frustrating season for the Vols and Vols fans last year with Joe Milton, I think it's a perfect timeline. But I still he might not be in the draft in 2026. He might have to come back for the next year. Can he consistently deliver like that? I mean, the Hendon Hooker, standard is, man, that is asking a lot of him this year to me. That was, who knows what'll happen with Hendon Hooker in the NFL. Now he's at a place where actually I thought when they drafted him, it was a good spot. Now it's like, well, Goff has really played well, and now they've extended
paid a ton
him.
of money. Yep.
But I think Hendon Hooker can be a good NFL quarterback. Regardless, it doesn't matter. I know what he was in college, and he was incredible that year. So I think the Hendon stuff that might be tough for Nico or people. And we've talked about it before. It's a natural thing you think of. Can they get back to 2022 quarterbacking? If they do, they're going to be in the playoff this year, I believe. I think they have enough else going for them that they're going to be a playoff team. But I don't think that's a fair expectation for him. I think we forget how ridiculous Hendon Hooker was in that offense. And the Alabama game is what you think of, but just consistently never throwing interceptions, on target, on time, making big time plays with his feet. And that's one thing I think Nico will do too. And that's among other things that'll get better from last year quarterback. That's one thing too. He's got some nice quickness and some escapability. I'm very excited to watch him play, but I think it's probably a little bit unrealistic to think that he's going to come in and just go for 350, 3 touchdowns and no picks every game.
I would agree with that. Now, I will say, I mean, look, there's hype around the kid for a reason, right? Like he's a 5-star quarterback, and he's got some incredible traits, right? And I think if you look at him, it's pretty clear he's put on some weight this offseason, which is something that they wanted him to do. And I think he's bulked up a little bit. So, number one, got to stay healthy. That's the main thing with him. But I do think that the expectation for him should be high. Now, Hendon Hooker, I don't know about that. Like, I know he's a 5-star, but Hendon Hooker had one of the greatest seasons in the history of Tennessee football. So that's a lofty bar to get to when it comes to the production that he put up. But I do think the expectation should be clearly higher than what Joe Milton put out there last year. That should be the expectation for Nico. I think they're set up to do that. I think the offensive line should be better than it was a year ago. I like the depth at wide receiver that they have. I'm interested to see how Heupel deploys those guys. Running back is still a question. Like I like Dylan Sampson. Cam Seldon's not healthy right now. Is he going to be healthy by the time the season starts? We'll see what happens on that front. They've got Peyton Lewis. I think it was a 4-star running back commit that they've had. So they've got some intriguing guys there. Is that room as a whole going to be as effective as the one they had last year with Wright, with Small, and with Sampson? That's a pretty lofty bar. Like, you're talking about one of, if not the best rushing attack in the country last year.
Yeah, no, and Wright, I think Wright's going to do some stuff in Miami, and he came to a loaded team, but I think he's going to be really good. I think Dylan Sampson, he's put on like 20 pounds.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think he could be special. But, man, you can't have that guy hurt. I think definitely there's some players behind there, but it's not like before where, they were trying to find snaps. I think Dylan Sampson will get heavy work as long as he's able to do it.
So I like the pieces around him. I still – does he have any, like, truly elite guys with him to help make some of those – like, I feel really good about Squirrel White, feel really good about Brew McCoy. Who's the third guy? Like, can Brazzell be that guy? Do they develop some sort of rotation where, Webb's in there, Nimrod's in there? Does Mike Matthews get significant playing time as a freshman? Is Thornton actually an impactful receiver this year? Like, they've got a lot of different guys to choose from. But, look, Nico, he's got a lot of ability, and you're hoping that ability translates into some big-time performances for you. Like, you go get the 5-star quarterback so you can be with a chance to go win a game on the road at Oklahoma, to be in a game on the road against Georgia, to win a game at home against Alabama. So is he going to win all those games? Probably not. But the expectation, I think, for him is rightly pretty high heading into this year.
It is. And I think, there's nothing I don't like about him from what I've seen or heard, And, obviously he came in with the sort of he was one of the early NIL stories.
Yep.
And, I think he's approached everything perfectly. But so let me just, in recent years, go through the 5-star quarterbacks 24/7. You got Hunter Johnson. You got JT Daniels.
Yep.
Spencer Rattler. Bo Nix. Bryce Young, Uiagalelei, Quinn Ewers, Caleb Williams, of course, Sam Heward. I didn't realize he was 5-star. Brock Vandegrift. Where did Brock Vandegrift go? He went to Georgia initially, right?
Yes, and I don't know
I forget where he ended up. He ended up somewhere. J.J. McCarthy and Kyle McCord. Kyle McCord goes Kyle McCord's a great example. Kyle McCord
is on Kentucky, by the way.
Oh, that's right. He's Kentucky's guy this year. So there you go. But yeah, like 5 stars, it can be deceiving. I think Nico. I think he's got the talent, and like I said, all the NIL stuff. that was a big. I think like his family has tried to like not talk or whatever, and everybody's talking about it. I think that he has a great outlook and approach and all that stuff. And now is he going to be? He is soft spoken. You know, is he going to be a leader guy out there? I don't know. Was Hendon Hooker?
Right.
Hendon Hooker, I think, was a good leader, but he wasn't Mr. Fiery.
Nico's got a little swag to him, though. I think
I think that's fair.
That's probably the way I would describe it. The one thing that I think if you're a Tennessee fan, you should be pretty encouraged by is, by all accounts, he's really accurate, like really accurate with the football. And, you know, we know Joe Milton. Sometimes he was, sometimes didn't really know where that thing was coming down.
Incredible arm talent, but yeah, couldn't consistently harness it.
So I mean, you should have an upgrade there of consistently putting the football where it needs to be put, and how much of a difference is that going to make in your offense? And you know, it's not like he doesn't have a big arm either. Now he doesn't have a Joe Milton arm, but he can make all the throws.
Yeah. No, I think he's got an NFL arm. Right. He's not. Yeah. The days of 80-yard arm punts are over, but he's got all the ability. And again, like some people have said, that the really unique thing about him is that usually 6'6" guys aren't as shifty as he is.
Yeah.
And kind of explosive. And he is. I mean, that's why he's a prospect. I think if I had to bet right now, I think he will be a first-round pick in 2026. But you've thought that about, again, some of these guys that I just listed at 5-star at certain times, like Spencer Rattler was just going to be the absolute
number one
star of stars. You know, this position is so difficult.
615-737-1025. What should the expectation for Nico be this year at Tennessee? How does he live up to the hype? We'll take your thoughts on all that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan. Today as the Nashville Sounds take on Charlotte. Pregame at 6:20. First pitch at 6:35. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com. Sounds baseball on 94.9 The Fan. Presented by Twin Peaks, Family Leisure, 5 Points Roofing, Caudle Vet Clinic, and Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Discussing the Vols, who open up fall camp in less than a week. A lot of expectation on Nico heading into this year. How does he live up to the hype? What should the expectation be for him? Taking your thoughts on that. 615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. We talked about it last week. Vols are picked 7th in the SEC. It's a really intriguing quarterback year in the SEC with Beck and Ewers and, Arch Manning's still there, and it's not even going to be the starter at Texas this year. It's got Nico coming in. Like, there's a lot of Oklahoma's got their own 5-star guy. Like, there's a lot of interesting quarterbacks this year in the SEC. I'm really excited to watch Nico play. Like, how quickly does he get up to speed? Even like the NC State game, right? Like, NC State, I would not describe them as like some elite team that they're playing, but that's a good non-conference test for Tennessee.
Yeah,
pretty early in the season to see kind of exactly where they are. And, it's neutral site, and I'm sure there'll be a ton of Vols fans there, but it is in North Carolina.
Yeah,
so we'll see how
I think there'll be some NC State fans for sure. It's a big game. That's not a gimme at all. That's a tone setter for the whole season. I mean, the Vols could absolutely lose that game, and just imagine the reaction if they do.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, playoffs over.
Playoffs
over week 1.
All righty.
Bye.
Fire Heupel.
Yeah, right. Seriously, it's a huge game. And, I think Tennessee should win it. I think Tennessee should go to Oklahoma and win. But I'm saying that without some of these questions answered. Like you said, how dynamic are the receivers? Is the offensive line significantly improved by addressing left tackle and hopefully having your center all year? Do you have some defensive backs who are actually difference makers who have a chance to play on Sundays because you need that?
Yeah,
you're past due on that. I do. There's some things that I'm excited to watch this defensive front for the Vols. If some best versions of some of those guys, there's a bunch of dudes who are going to be one way or another in the NFL.
Well, that's where they could really have a strength on their hands. You hope you have a big strength with your quarterback play, and ultimately that's the most important thing. But I think their defensive front, and I would say line, but really their whole front, they've got some pretty good depth at linebacker, and they've got excellent depth, excellent quality on the defensive line. That's where I think this team could be a little bit different than what we've seen the last few years for them.
Yeah, for sure. And now, look, Aaron Beasley was a playmaker, was a heck of a player. So you lose some too. Keenan Peely, very interesting. It's consistent in that program. There's a lot of excitement about that. And you know what? It is good to have sometimes in college football.
Yeah,
a 30-year-old out there thumping for you.
It is good to have. But if you look at the way that they've recruited, they've actually recruited under Heupel better on the defensive side of the ball than they have the offensive side of the ball. It's, secondary notwithstanding, and that's what they got to get figured out. But, obviously the 5-star quarterback helps in the offensive side.
5-star receivers.
They got a 5-star receiver, but not great offensive linemen in terms of recruiting to this point. We'll see if that changes. They've had they're starting to get a lot of pretty good depth on the defensive line in terms of them recruiting that way. I'm really if you talk to people around the program and you listen to some of the talk coming out of Knoxville, they're talking about this being the deepest defense, especially defensive front, that they've had since the early 2000s. Now that may be a little rich. I don't know. It's not like they've got John Henderson and Albert Hainsworth out there at the same time.
Right.
But they're talking about this being a pretty legit squad on that side of the ball.
Yeah. Those are some loaded teams, but that is interesting. I'd never thought about it in terms of they've actually overall recruited better on defense. And I just think that there's two. I think they've recruited really well in the front seven. And I think they've recruited really well with offensive skill. it's just those two spots, offensive line and secondary. So far, they've had to patch with the portal.
Yep.
And even really with the secondary, that just nothing has been great. They've had, I mean, like last year we were like, oh, Kamal Hadden actually is their best corner, but still that's not anything to write home about.
Well, I heard the guys on the VolQuest podcast were talking about this. Like, who's the last outside of Eric Berry? Like, who's the last guy since Eric Berry that they've had in the secondary where you're just like, man, that guy's a player. Like
Right.
they've got some NFL guys, like Cam Sutton, the NFL guy.
Yep.
Emmanuel Mosley, NFL guy. Like they've had some guys, Lante Taylor, but they haven't had what I would call a difference maker back there in a while.
Yeah, like some of those guys, and some of those guys probably suffered from just deficiencies. Like, I think if some of those guys are on better defenses overall, then maybe. But yeah, like Cam
some of
Sutton
them,
was
quite
playing with Derek Barnett and those guys.
Some of them, quite frankly, are better players in the NFL than they were at Tennessee.
Because the whole thing wasn't put together. So I guess that's not on them. But yeah, in the last few years, I mean, in the hyper layer, like you'd love to have a Cam Sutton. My goodness. I mean, Theo Jackson was good. He had a really good season, and that was nice. But it just. So I don't know, what is that? Is that just those spots? They just haven't been able to recruit. They've had bad luck. I don't know what it is. I do know that there are some young guys, well, especially in the secondary this year, that we might finally see. I mean, the offensive line, they've got some young guys as depth, and I have no idea how good they are. And they don't want to get to those guys. But in the secondary, you mentioned Boo Carter the other day, and they've got some guys that maybe finally will emerge. And if that's the case, and they can actually, be more solid and then be a little bit more playmaking back there, then that's why this team should be considered a playoff fringe contender.
Yeah, I think one thing is pretty clear. Like they are, if you look at kind of the profile of some of their young guys that they've got in the secondary, whether it's both at corner and at safety right now, they're way more athletic there. Now that doesn't always translate to being better, right? Like they're very, in some cases inexperienced on the back end. But I think the athleticism that those guys have, like Boo Carter, people are talking about, outside of maybe Brew McCoy and James Pierce as being the most athletic person on the team right now. So they've got a lot of ability back there in terms of just the pure raw talent. Now, how quickly does it come together in the SEC is a different story.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, really, this team would probably benefit from, a Tennessee Tech to start or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm excited that they have this game coming right out of the gates.
Well, they get Chattanooga first.
Oh, okay, that's right. I apologize. That's right. The NC State game is. You can't expect me to know the schedule. I mean, it's a full month away.
Shout out to the Mocs.
They do get Chattanooga first, which is good, and then they quickly go. But some teams have 2-3 games before they get into a test. But that will be good for them.
615-737-1025. We'll have Charles Robinson coming up at 8 o'clock. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode at 7:45. We'll get back into the Titans coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, the game.
Well, what has the conversation been like with you and Brian Callahan in terms of maybe taking some risks during training camp, learning from that? So maybe, during the game you say, okay, we can do that. Yeah, that's something we need to shy away from.
Yeah, we talked a couple times, throughout our time off about mentality of training camp. And, first couple of days, we're going to, take the easy ones and not try to push the ball downfield too much just with the acclimation period and all that. But I'm really looking forward to taking those shots and finding that line between pushing it and testing it, I guess. So you don't want to be reckless with the ball, but now is the time to test my arm and to test the ability of these guys and the skill sets that they have. And we know that, the special plays are in those certain situations, and we need to work on those if we expect them to show up on Sundays or Mondays.
As Will Levis yesterday with the Tennessee Titans, first day of training camp wrapping up on the podium. Taking your thoughts on the Titans, 615-737-1025. The Game Summer Ticket Tour, presented by Green River Whiskey, is back. Join our own Joe Dubin at MJ Sports Bar and Grill at 1253 Northwest Broad Street in Murfreesboro today from 4 to 6 p.m. as he gives away tickets to upcoming concerts in Nashville, Bush, Train, Dierks Bentley, and a whole lot more. Also get signed up for the grand prize, tickets to a Preds home game, Sounds game, and to the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. For more details, visit thegamenashville.com/tour. Green River Distilling Company, Owensboro, Kentucky. Alcohol volume varies by product. Please drink responsibly. Joe, what did you make of Will Levis's answer there on when to push the ball down the field, when to take risks, when not, and that experiment that will be going on throughout camp?
Well, I'm glad we got to that clip because that is a good observation from yesterday, too. They did not throw downfield one time. So clearly, the first day of work was we are going to hit these. We're going to hit these short. We're going to hit these intermediates. We're going to hone our skills at that, and that's what they did. So it'll be interesting today. See if Will Levis lets it rip some, or if it's another day of let's focus on that stuff. And that would be one difference. Sitting there yesterday at camp talking to other media folks, it's kind of like you have the big picture. How's this look different? Obviously, it's we already saw in the spring. Not having variable on the field is very different. Frankly, there's a lot less entertainment in terms of just random F-bombs and the creative ways they're used and thrown at people. I miss that. Someone brought up that maybe the tempo is a little bit faster, kind of quicker, a little bit more, a little oomph to the tempo. And I guess I could see that, but also just interesting, like the offensive, clearly, like that was what they're like. This is what we're working on today. Like we're throwing these routes and we got to get it really good. So it'll be interesting to see if that changes today. Maybe they save some bombs for the fans showing up at Nissan Stadium on Saturday.
Maybe so.
But as far as what Levis said, it's kind of, Callahan's talking about this too. But take chances. Take some chances. See if you can. It's something you might not have thrown a game. And then, of course, then someone be like, he threw 2 picks today. Oh, my God. But that's life. That's how it goes.
He's promised he's not going to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. We'll check on that later. But you take some chances, but also you don't just go out there and just throw everything, that comes to mind. You got to work on some stuff and be able to execute these plays.
How about this question? It says, rank the upcoming seasons in order of your excitement for can't wait to watch between the Titans, the Vols, and the Preds. This texter says they're going Preds, Titans, Vols, but it's really close. Genuinely amazing that all three teams have an exciting season coming up.
Interesting. Yeah. First of all, this has to be answered by someone with the exact same level of interest in all three teams, sure. Right? So, some people
Which I'm sure is some.
Yeah, I'm sure it's probably some. But I would guess, I'll just say it in terms of just observing and, as someone without sentimental attachment to it, I would probably go, the Titans would be last for me. And I'm very intrigued by the Titans. But I do think that the other two teams they just have more potential to have great seasons. So, honestly, I'm just because it's close, but I would probably go Vols, Preds, Titans. The Vols.
That's probably what mine would be.
They could make the first 12-team playoff. The first 12-team playoff is a huge deal on its own. And this team could make that, and like they may have a great, like an all-time great quarterback. They might not, but
Yeah.
they might. And the fact that they might is pretty intriguing. Whereas with the Preds, I think they're very exciting, but we know what Steven Stamkos is, right? Like, and they've seen their best days. I think he's still going to have good days here, really good days.
Yeah.
But Nico, the unknown element with him, then again, you can kind of make that case with Levis, I guess, too, and
Well,
Levis and the Titans.
I would put it this way: like the Vols, I don't know if they have championship expectations, but there's an expectation for them to compete and get in the college football playoff. The Predators, clearly, with what they've done, there are going to be some people talking about Stanley Cup with the Predators. So there are championship level expectations with the Predators. There are not those for the Titans. I think we would all agree with that. So that by itself makes it a little bit different.
And the case for the Preds, I think, would be they have, I think, the best chance of the three of winning a championship.
I would agree.
That's pretty wild, man.
I would agree.
Sports is cool here.
Sports is cool around here. Adam in Portland says, if you hear Jared describe camp yesterday, it was yoga class with puking.
Yeah, I don't know.
I wouldn't get look, too many. I talked about this in the best and worst thing in sports. I don't know that I would go with too many takeaways from day one of a weeks-long training camp. Like this training camp, it's really designed as like a long ramp-up period to get you ready for the season. That's all it is a ramp-up period to get you ready to play football. So, yes, there will be some days where Will Levis looks like a stud out there in training camp. There'll probably be a couple days where he throws 2 or 3 picks in one day. Like I wouldn't get overly worked up about what you see in Titans training camp.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like if it's consistently like, man, every single day is he's sharp. It still doesn't mean you should get your Super Bowl tickets, but okay, that's good. If it's like frequently that he's making a lot of mistakes and stuff, yeah, at some point you might want to get a little concerned. But yeah, at least give it a couple weeks.
Yeah, like it's again, this is why we're a football obsessed country. I get it. I love it. I love football too. But man, camp sometimes it's just
yeah.
Golly.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, because of the pre-rant here, I just want to read Trey from Antioch, who had the terrible Tannehill takes, but now he has a terrible Simone Biles take.
Okay.
He says, that's one of the worst takes I've seen in my life. LOL. And it's disrespectful to the other great athletes in American history. She doesn't even crack the top 10 greatest athletes.
Disrespectful.
Well, that's yeah. She doesn't even crack the top 10 greatest athletes. I'd love to see her run track or dribble a basketball or even hit a softball. Trey, she probably isn't very good at that. All the athletes who do those sports, let's put them on the balance beam and watch them die when they try to do what she does.
A lot of death today.
I know. With death and birth.
Death and birth.
Yes,
We've covered all aspects.
We are.
Measuring cheek size.
But how is it like if you say one person is the best, that means all the other people suck?
Yeah.
How is it disrespectful? You're getting me lathered up, Trey.
LeBron James, awful.
Yeah. Jordan's the best, and so LeBron must suck. Good logic.
Jordan,
You and Stilly
need him to sign a
seem
contract.
to share a logic brain. What's that?
Need him to sign a contract. That'd be great. Jordan Love.
Yeah, I thought that was going to happen by now,
I
huh?
thought it
You
was
starting to
too.
get worried?
Packers
Starting to get
defense-
nervous?
Packers defense is tearing apart the offense. I need the
Yeah.
contract. to get
Wonder
signed.
why.
Sean Clifford throwing picks left and right. Mark from Ashland City says Preds easily number 1, and it's not close. Then the Titans are number 2. I'm not a Vol fan, so they're not on that list.
Yeah, so that's the thing. But if you don't like the teams generally about the same, then you're not. Like, you shouldn't even approach the question.
Correct.
Like if you're a Preds fan but not a Vols fan, you don't need to approach the question.
Right.
Yeah.
How many hours a day do the Titans practice? Yesterday was about an hour, was it not?
It was
A little over now?
No, yeah, I think about an hour 20. That's usually what they are. Like I think today the schedule is 9 to 10:30. I think. Let me look here. Or is it 8:30 to? No. Next week they start doing 8:30. Are we going to be out there, by the way?
Good question.
I think we might be because it's that early. But today is 9 to 10:30. Yesterday was technically 9:15 to 10:30. They did go a little later than 10:30 though, so it was like hour 20, hour 25.
Yeah, it's not.
That's about what
it
it is.
ain't what it used to be. There's no 2-a-days.
Yeah, 5 hours of
3
smashing
days
into
and-
each other. Yeah,
Concussion protocols being ignored left and right. None of that.
No such term. Yeah,
Yeah.
you got dinged. Here's some salt.
Can you see straight? Get back out there.
Come on. You're fine.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Coming up next, it's time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. You can check it out every morning here on the program. We'll do that next. Charles Robinson with Yahoo Sports coming up at 8 o'clock. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
First of all, I ask better press conference questions than you do, and everybody knows.
I know. Oh, yeah, you do.
I didn't hear the coach say that's a good question, Joe, yesterday, but he did for me. I mean, consistently, my questions in press conferences lead to stories at ESPN.com and all this consistently, Joe. And you know it. I don't think Joe and Paul are so smart that they could have formulated some great question that would have got him to say anything more than what he was already prepared to say. I mean, what are they say? So is your favorite breakfast cereal, do you like Fruit Loops or do you like Corn Pops or what was that tweet about? Like, what could they have done?
I guess maybe he is dumb.
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. You can check it out every morning here on the program. Joe Rexrode, I feel like you have a lot to say today, so I'm going to just go ahead and turn it over to you.
I'm going to put something to bed today because it's just amazing that we have to revisit this, but that's what Jared does. And so, hey, I'd say in a way he wins. He says something stupid, and then he dies on the hill, and it's like, well, do we try to help the listeners or do we just let it fester? I should have just let it go. By the way, TD, one of my favorite things about Jared versus Joe, all those clips were from yesterday of Jared versus Joe. One of my favorite things is that I know TD is going to blow me up while I'm doing Jared versus Joe, and he's sort of like he's like my guy in the ring, He's like, all right, come on, here we go. You're all right. Put a little towel, get you ready to go back in there. But I just want to read this from TD. This dude, he's talking about Jared. This is TD. Quote, this dude really had the audacity to say his questions consistently lead to stories on ESPN. Unbelievable, end quote.
He did uncover that Aaron Rodgers bought a house here one time.
My goodness. But what I want to talk about is the thing we talked about yesterday, and I'm gonna calmly go through this because you agreed with me yesterday. We all agree. Like, no one else would think this. Only Jared would. And if you ran Jared's logic through anyone in that building who knows what happened, they'd just be like, what's wrong with that kid? But his logic is essentially because the Titans lied about Malarkey. And again, I don't even know that it was really lying, but it was certainly John Robinson wanted Malarkey out. Amy Adams-Strunk puts a statement out. Mike's our coach, and they fire him after the loss. So that's true. That did happen. So Jared's logic is because that happened, this whole situation with Vrabel was also a lie. So everything's a lie, which is
Correct.
dumb, which is just it's just an inability to process things, I think. Different situations are different. Yes, all these teams at times lie. We could all agree on that. Also, I would hope we'd all agree they don't always lie. And there are different situations that come up, like the Vrabel Amy Adams-Strunk situation was a different situation from the Malarkey situation in a lot of ways. So I think that's important to keep in mind. Also, this has all been talked about, reported, put to bed. It was over.
Yeah.
And then Jared comes up with I think she was lying all along. Winnie the Pooh. So
Thank you.
all right. So, TD, I told TD yesterday, I almost drove my car off the road when you said that Jared, when he does the field goal thing, his little shirt comes up and he looks like Winnie the Pooh out there. I almost seriously got in a car accident. Don't do that to me, TD. All right. So let's go through. Let me go through January 11th, 2024. Diana Rossini and Joe Rexrode had a report in The Athletic. And like I said then, Diana.
Did you just refer to yourself in the third person?
Yes.
Okay.
Joe's getting angry. Joe's getting mad at Jared.
Right.
So this story, this story, I believe 15, 16 different people were talked to for this story. Okay. Some of them not quoted. I think a dozen were used as sources in the story. And these things are that still in some of these things, it's what someone said. So it doesn't mean people can't lie, right? But that's why you cross-reference things and you talk to as many people as you can. And I'm confident in the accuracy of this report. Let's review what happened, okay? First of all, here's a graph from the story. Quote, the Titans considered moving on from Vrabel after last season for a fresh start, according to a team source, but Strunk still believed Vrabel was a great coach and worth keeping. The hope was that an arranged marriage between Carthon and Vrabel would work because both men had shown a willingness to adapt, okay? So that's where things were. Someone brought that up yesterday. Yeah, there was a consideration, but also, Mike Vrabel was a great coach by everybody's definition going into last season, right? Now he's an idiot in some eyes, but at that point, you have to put yourself in the moment, right? We talked about the comments. Look, Mike Vrabel told Amy Adams-Strunk, Here's another graph for you. When Carthon was close to getting the GM job, Vrabel told Strunk he liked Carthon but didn't feel he was ready to become an NFL general manager. Vrabel's suggestion, the Titans hire Carthon as assistant GM, a promotion from his position as number 3 at the Niners. Strunk did not take kindly to this suggestion, and team sources believe her and Vrabel's relationship took a hit as a result of that conversation. That's an important point. I think that's one of the most important points of the whole thing, okay? Then we have Foxborough, the nothing burger. Again, I'll raise my hand. I underestimated how Amy would take this.
Yeah.
It was a nothing burger in terms of what Vrabel meant by it. But if you want to disagree, that's fine. I can't get it. I mean, I can't get inside his brain, but I do believe that. Vrabel came back. Okay. So the whole of here's a line from the story. The whole event did not sit well with Strunk, a team source said. She and Vrabel never talked about it, but she let it fester. Here's the key graph that relates to what Jared is trying to claim. Quote, high-level Titan sources told The Athletic in November that the team's long-term plan was to retain Vrabel as coach. After Vrabel's firing, a team source said that was true then because Strunk strongly believed in Vrabel at the time and because she wanted Vrabel to have a clear understanding of how she felt about him and how badly she wanted him to be the coach for years to come. Strunk did not get the sense that Vrabel felt the same way, and the communication between them got worse from there. That's how people felt. Again, who's wrong? Who's right? What did they really feel? I mean, look, we can't get inside people's brains. You are limited to what people said, but logically, I think that makes sense. What doesn't make sense is the Titans wanting it out there. No, including again, TD. We weren't the only people, or Diana was not the only person who reported this. TD, other people had it too. No, they are keeping him. Jared thinks that she was lying on purpose at that moment. Like, we keep coming back to how stupid this whole conversation is, and that's why this is the last time I'm talking about it. Another point to make, by the way. Jared made this, 6 weeks later. Look, this was festering over time. This festered through the whole season. The New England thing was a big deal for her. How it wasn't discussed was a big deal for her, clearly, okay? Also, she was resolved to fire Mike Vrabel before it got to the end of the season. That's another thing in the story. I mean, it unraveled quickly, kind of, but if you considered moving on from him before, you can kind of track it all, right? I think it all makes sense.
By the way,
what doesn't make sense is I'm going to put this out there, but I'm lying.
Well, here's kind of my thing in all this too. And look, you can think whatever you want to think about Amy Adams Strunk and the type of owner she is. And we've talked about this. I think things for the most part with the Titans have largely gotten a lot better since she's come in and is taking charge of things.
Fair.
She did the year prior to that fire the general manager in the middle of the season. And
right.
you could say they could say all they want to about how it wasn't about the AJ Brown thing. I mean, it wasn't a coincidence to me that it happened the Tuesday after AJ Brown torched them. Okay. So you're talking about an owner that has been known from time to time to make some pretty rash decisions. Think whatever you want to think about it. The evidence is what it is.
A 2-year stretch, you went from these are my guys, I'm giving them huge deals, and they're going to get paid that money no matter what, to they're both out.
Yeah, and you could think that both of them were the right move. That's fine. I'm just saying that opinions changed pretty drastically with her in a very short amount of time.
Yes. Jackson says, stop giving Jared stupid thoughts airtime, please. It's ridiculous. He's the worst. I'm not saying he's the worst. Or anything like that. But this is one of those examples of like, why you're just overthinking things, I guess. Because like I can't find another person who would think that. And the fact that they have lied before, again, you always think they're always lying. Great. I mean, broken clocks are right twice a day. You're a broken clock. And C from Franklin calls you Stilly the Pooh. And now I may never get over that.
Coming up next.
We will not talk about this again.
We will be joined by Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports. We'll get his thoughts on the Titan, his thoughts on the top storylines around the National Football League as training camp is underway as well. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Thursday morning. And we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in our friend Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports. Charles, good morning. How are you?
Doing well, guys. Sneaking my way along the 405 in LA behind, I guess apparently there must have been an accident. Someone else was doing a radio interview and got into an accident. So
it can be dangerous.
Yeah. Let's try to be safe on this one. How you guys doing?
We're great, man. Just total chaos around. Charles dedicated every time. It's 6 o'clock out there in LA, and he's right there with us.
Yeah, you got to get. I've learned with I always come to LA to start my camp tours, and I've figured out that if you don't get your way, like Oxnard's it should be an hour away, but if you don't start at the right time, it can be 4 hours away. So you got to make sure you're in the car at the right time. So I knew I was out the door by 5:30 this morning.
So we have a listener who wants to know, very curious about your best case scenario, your worst case scenario as it relates to the Tennessee Titans and the type of team you think they may have heading into this year.
Oh man, that's pretty broad, because if I sit there and think about the worst case scenario for any NFL team, it can be pretty bad. And I think so. The thing with the Titans that's obviously important is you have so many young guys. I mean, clearly there's veteran elements of the roster, no doubt, but there's so many young guys, and this is like I remember one time talking to Belichick about over all the years he coached, how he kind of compared the experience with teams. And he would say, well, sometimes you have young teams and that's fun because it's the learning phase. And then he says, sometimes you have old teams. That's great because you can do all kinds of dynamic stuff. They can handle a lot of complicated things. And that's fun. And he said, but sometimes you get lucky and you're right in the middle and you're able to both teach the young guys, but also utilize the old guys to do some complicated things. I think in some aspects, the Titans are a little bit in the middle, but I think they're leaning more toward the young phase. You got an offensive line where you have young pieces that have to come together. It's probably going to look rough early in camp. You have a young quarterback who does not have a lot of starts under his belt. That's also going to look ugly at times in training camp. So to me, the worst case scenario is, the youth falters or there's injuries, and it's no different than any other NFL teams. But with veteran teams, sometimes you can have youth falter and veterans carry you, but not typically when it's a quarterback. So if you have a young quarterback like Will Levis and he falters and the division is getting better, which it clearly is around the Titans, of course it could go really badly. I guess when I look at the Titans and I hope to get out there and see them, the most important thing is the obvious thing. It's for Will Levis to take a step forward. Everything, when organizations have young quarterbacks like this, even if you suffer through a not great year, let's say it's like 6-11, right? That would be disappointing, I think, for Titans fans. They would hope that things would be better. But what does the quarterback look like in that process? Does he take a stride forward? Do you exit the season going, hey, you know what? Yeah, wasn't ideal, but we're on the right track. In some ways, if you look at the Packers last year, say they had not made the playoffs and done some of the things that they did in the playoffs that got everybody so excited, they were in a good enough shape going down the stretch with Jordan Love that inside that organization, they thought, hey, you know what? Even if we don't make the playoffs this year, we know we got our guy. We feel like we got our guy. We're confident, and that sets us on the right track. I feel like when I look at the Titans, the worst case scenario is they falter and you look at Levis and you go, we're coming out of this not knowing, like, if it might not work with him. Now does the new coaching staff start to look at him and say, hey, we got to make a change at quarterback here potentially, or we have to go into the off season getting him some competition at the position. If that is what's happening, then you're still really in the difficult part of a rebuild. I still truly believe it's a league where if you don't have the quarterback settled, you're always in a rebuild. I don't care what the rest of the roster looks like around it. You're not going to win a Super Bowl with a situation at quarterback, or I think even have deep runs into the playoffs and that kind of success if you feel like you don't have some sort of settlement at quarterback. So worst case scenario to me is Levis falters the line doesn't come together, and they exit with that quarterback question in 2024. That's terrible. Best case scenario is the opposite of it. Levis takes a big stride forward. I don't even think it necessarily has to be, make the playoffs, make a playoff run or whatever. But for the coaching staff to have confidence in Levis, to have that offensive line, and I think it's going to take some time, gel as it gets rebuilt. To me, even if there's some struggles and it's not a, playoff type of season, as long as you have quarterbacks settled, that might not in your minds or Titans fans' minds be the best case scenario, but it really is. Resolving that meaningfully with a new coaching staff, particularly an offensive-minded coaching staff, is going to mean everything for this organization. So I would make every single day out in camp or the totality of camp about how does Levis look and does it look like he is fitting into place and taking a step forward.
If someone told you right now the Tennessee Titans will finish the season 10-7, you would say what to that person? Would you laugh?
I would say, do I think that there's potential for that? Yeah, I do. I mean, they're not, I've told you before, I'm a lot higher on the Titans than everyone else. I do think it's, like I said, it's a more difficult division than it has been in the past. I don't know that Indianapolis, I have as many questions about Indianapolis as I would about Tennessee. Houston, I saw Houston look fantastic. Definitely make me feel like last year was not an aberration. But again, they caught a lot of green lights. You look at their schedule, they won a lot of close games. So to me, there's never a guarantee that replicates itself. The biggest mistake over 20 years of covering the NFL, every training camp that I make, and I think I continue to make it, is that I always think past success is an indicator of future success. And it's not. I go into teams and I go, hey, they looked great last year and all the same guys are here and they look pretty good, so they're going to look great this year. That's not true. That does not happen, with every single team consistently in the NFL. So I think 10-7, is it a possibility? Yes. Do I think the offensive line is going to have to seriously come together I mean, you're going to see the strides, huge strides through the course of training camp, which is very difficult with offensive lines now. That would have to happen. Levis, getting his feet under him and making good decisions and, maintaining a high level of confidence, that would have to happen. Those wide receivers that you have that depth, particularly the top three guys. I mean, they all have to hit the ground running and really make meaningful contributions right away. That I think the coaching staff it'd sort of have to be like a situation in Houston, where the coaching staff comes in, the roster immediately responds to the concepts they're putting on the table, and it kind of changes the tone and confidence in the building. I do think it would take a lot, let me put it that way, to get to 10-7. You're not going to sit there and struggle at offensive line and quarterback and be 10-7. If they pulled that off, I would think, okay, what happened defensively then that really moved this team a lot further ahead than I thought maybe was possible in 2024.
So, Charles, on the quarterback front, from a contract perspective, waiting on Tua in Miami and Jordan Love in Green Bay. How do you view kind of where both of those situations sit as we sit here today?
Well, it's not great. I mean, they both franchises obviously want to have this ironed out by now. The one that concerns me most about the two is probably Jordan Love in Green Bay, because from every indication I've got, including from other teams that have either done quarterback deals, adjusted quarterback deals, have quarterback deals coming up, they're all keeping really close tabs on Jordan Love in Green Bay, because everyone has heard out of Jordan Love's camp that they're really pushing for him to be the next highest paid player in the NFL, which I think would be a little bit of a shock given what his resume has been in Green Bay. And I think there's definitely some consternation in other organizations where they're sitting there going, is this what we're going to do now? Like, are we going to just pay guys? Like, granted, unbelievable second half of the season, stellar, off the charts, but overall, that's his resume. He really basically has the second half of the 2023 season, and you're going to make him the highest paid player. And I think part of the concern that played into that was that it happened for Trevor Lawrence. I think it surprised some teams that Trevor Lawrence landed that massive highest paid deal as easily as he did with Jacksonville. so I think the expectation between Tua and the Miami Dolphins is not the same as the expectation as it is with Jordan Love and the Packers. Do I think it gets done with Jordan Love and the Packers? I do, because there were a lot of indications when you talk to people before camps kicked off, like, what deals are we going to get done? And you kept hearing the Packers, it's close, it's close, it's close. Yesterday, I talked to a few people about quarterbacks, deals that were either adjusted or just kind of where things are going. And everybody now is talking about Love and whether or not he's going to end up being the highest paid player in the NFL by the time he gets back on the field for them. So it's a little concerning, I think, for teams if the Packers end up awarding that kind of a deal on such a short resume.
So I ask you both. That is the initial reaction I have to that is like, my goodness. But at the same time, and I hear you what you're saying about that's his resume. But I do think that's what he is. I think that's what he is. I think I would do it. Right? Like,
if you're his agent, Joe, yeah, absolutely.
But I think he's that good. I mean, I don't know.
You are your thoughts.
It's not my money, so it's fine.
Based on exactly. It's not your money, and
get a little bit more stock in my shareholder up there.
That's right.
Listen, the ecosystem right now in the NFL at quarterback it's getting dicey. Okay, like it's never going to happen, but I have definitely heard from teams, and I know it's coming from owners, this idea of like, hey, maybe in the next CBA, do we try and figure out a way to cap quarterback wages or have some kind of a limitation on where quarterback salaries are going? Basically,
these insufferable billionaires. My God.
But basically, there's this like, should we have a quarterback cap? Now, no one really believes that's possible. I don't even think in terms of like how CBAs are negotiated, I've never heard of like capping one particular position inside of a larger ecosystem of labor. I don't even know if that's legal. I mean, CBAs, I can't attest to whether or not that could be accomplished, but I can tell you right now, if you want to turn all the quarterbacks to NFL against their own union and also against the owners, that's the fastest way to do it. But what it represents to me is just a larger concern of like, owners don't trust each other. They don't trust each other to not do deals. Ever since Jimmy Haslam did the deal with Deshaun Watson, where he made Deshaun Watson not only the highest paid player in the NFL, but gave him a fully guaranteed contract, it just, you can tell, you just get this sense in organizations where it's like, and I'll just tell you yesterday, just from talking to somebody on my way back from Rams practice, I was on the phone and literally the guy said to me, and this guy, another organization, and they're eyeing a future quarterback deal. And he was like, the Packers aren't really going to do this, are they? Are they really going to make this guy the highest paid player in the NFL on what was just an absolutely, I mean, it was a great run, but it's just not long enough to justify that. They should stand their ground at least for a season before they do that. And I'm with you. I shrug and I go, I don't know. The Packers are in this situation. They feel like they got their quarterback. They want to get it done and get it out of the way. And, so do I think it'll ultimately happen? Yeah, I think it probably will, because it's going to drive them crazy not having him, practice. But I'm just telling you, the quarterback wages rocketing over the last 10 years. Kind of look where they've gone, especially from the point where Kirk Cousins was the highest paid player in the NFL when he signed that Vikings deal for what, $28 million a year, and now we're at 55. We're flying towards 60 million. I mean, that's a short period of time to double, quarterback wages in the NFL, and that doesn't happen often in the league where you see a position that quickly. Just you snap your fingers, and now everybody's making twice what they were. But then again, the TV deals affect that, and I don't want to.
It's the most important job in sports, I mean,
hey. If your quarterback's doing well and he's got a track record, get the deal done early. Or if there's any real, consternation, like let's say Daniel Jones with the Giants, start making plans immediately to actually remedy it and move out of the situation. You either cut him earlier than you want to, or you just do a deal, you get the deal done. So, and then Titans, if Levis has a great season this year, the Titans should already be thinking, how are we going to do how are we going to do the deal? When are we going to do the deal? Like how long is a long enough period of time for us to feel like we can make the decision we need to make on how much we want to pay him and where he'll be. But if Levis plays great this year and he plays, let's say he replicates that next year, you're going to be talking about Will Levis possibly being the highest paid player in the NFL. And I don't mean that that's going to happen. I'm just saying that's all it takes.
Yeah.
If a quarterback comes in the league and puts together 2, solidly good to great years, and let's look at Lawrence. They have great years, right? But he was their option. He was what they had, and they did not want to consider the alternative. That's how he becomes the highest paid player in the game. So there's your the fan that has the worst case, best case scenario. That's both your best and worst case scenario at the same time is Trevor Lawrence. What if Will Levis goes out and plays well enough to be like, oh, that's got to be our quarterback, but not well enough for you to feel great about giving him the highest paid contract in football. That's how it works now.
So, Charles, speaking of throwing money around, the big three in Dallas with Prescott, Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, you got Lamb holding out right now. How do you ultimately think this is all going to work out for Jerry Jones and the Cowboys, trying to figure out contracts for those three?
I feel like the only thing I'm confident about is if they exit Oxnard, if they leave Oxnard, Dak Prescott's going to free agency and won't be a Dallas Cowboy next year. I think if he does not have his deal done by the time camp ends, that'll be it. And, CeeDee Lamb, I think he ends up back on the field. I don't like if you ask me right now who are the two guys they definitely end up paying, I think it's probably CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons, because I don't know what's going on with Prescott. I know there's some scars from the last negotiation with him where they felt like they got put into a position where they offered solid numbers and then it just kept coming back to the point where Dak was like, nope, my agent's going to, get the max number that he can for me. And I know that bothered the Cowboys pretty deeply. I think they had the hope was they would get some kind of discount, a group discount from all three, just something like, hey, let's not top out every single guy. That's not happening. Like CeeDee Lamb is going to be paid top 2 wide receiver money if you believe what's coming out of his camp. I don't think that the Cowboys anticipated that was where the money was going to end up landing for him. And again, this goes back to where we are now. Every time a player comes up, if they're inside the top 7-8 players at their position or they're a quarterback, teams should get ready for this idea that their agents are going to go, hey, supply and demand, do you want this guy back or not? You got to pay him, either at the top of the salary scale or pretty close to it. I think that they get the deal done with CD in this camp. I think I'm leaning more toward Dak not being with the Cowboys, or at least going to free agency next year, which I think he would not be with the Cowboys, than coming back at this stage just because of how that negotiation has just not gone anywhere. And, I think if Dak goes out the door, then they have much less of a problem with how they pay Micah ultimately. The surprise, the shock to me would be all three players being Dallas Cowboys in 2026.
Okay, so I have to follow up. I know you're what you went to the Rams. You're going to the Cowboys next, right? Okay, yeah. So then is Trey Lance going to make his triumphant return? What's Dallas's QB plan? They're just going rookie deal.
You're asking me what their you're asking me like what their plan is, and I don't get it myself. Like I'm sitting there going, what is the hope that Trey Lance is going to get a ton of run in preseason games. That's what's going to happen. He's basically going to be the focus of the organization is going to be, let's see what this guy does. And if he goes out and plays really well, I definitely wonder if there will be a penchant in the organization to go, hey, look at Green Bay. Like that guy had some rough, outings. There were times where there was definitely a question about whether or not he could be their starting quarterback long-term. Once he got his opportunity, he kind of rounded a corner. This guy needed a fresh start. Now he's here. He definitely still has the talent that he had before. It's just, can he process and make the decisions quickly and, make the right throws? he goes out there and does that, I absolutely think it's like there's going to be some brain worms in the organization where it's like, maybe we do have a viable quarterback here right now. That's the only plan I can really consider. I don't know who else you could count on coming in and replacing Dak Prescott in 2025. And I don't even think they would want to make that organization because, look, I'm going to be real. If Dak goes out the door, depending on how the season ends, let's say the Cowboys, Dak plays really well. He's going to be in free agency. He's leaving. And the Cowboys make the playoffs, but again, fail to make the long run that Jerry Jones really wants. You don't make the quarterback's, decision because you're waiting for your next coach to make it. And I think that would be Bill Belichick. So there's that. Maybe that's the plan. I tell you what, Jerry's talking today. Steven's talking today, Steven Jones. The whole, they're going to do their press conference today, and we're going to find out exactly what, or not find out any of their plans. It's just usually how it goes. But they're going to talk today, and the press is going to be on with them that entire press conference about what are you going to do about CD, what are you going to do about Dak, and where is the organization pointed? Because right now it's just as possible that it gets blown up after this season in some respects, and there's a new head coach next year and a new quarterback. And to me, new head coach, new quarterback is rebuild. So that's where they're at. They had their opportunity last year. I can tell you that. There's no question. The Cowboys had last year to put it all together. Now the question is a quarterback, DQ, Dan Quinn's gone. I mean, they're in a far dicier situation this year than they were last year.
Charles, last thing for you here. The circus that is the New York Jets has returned to training camp out there, and Rodgers was cornered yesterday about his trip to Egypt that he took in the middle of minicamp. What do you make of that situation? What that circus is going to be like around him and that team this year with Robert Saleh and company, and what it all means?
He said something yesterday that it blows my mind that, and I think we're just so used to now at this point, Aaron says stuff and he is what he is, and just, okay, let's get him on the field. Then we can be like, okay, this is why you make the trade-off. But for him to come out and say that and reiterate that OTAs and a full squad minicamp are just the same thing, that a full squad minicamp nowadays is just a glorified OTA, is inside that building, that has to, somebody's probably breaking a door. Okay. Like you do not want this guy standing up there and saying that, because he might not be in the organization next year, the year after, whatever. And especially if you're ownership, they're chock full of young guys who are all looking at Rodgers and are all taking cues from Rodgers. And when he says something like that, which is not true, by the way, like I see how he's approaching it from a practice standpoint, but teams look at it completely different than players. You get as many players in the door as you can. You do some elements of install. You recalculate where exactly you're going into training camp. You figure out, hey, what veteran free agents are still out there? Like, where are we weak at right now? Let's get our eyes on everybody together and see what functionality is there. Oh, maybe we want to do some extensions with some players. It'll be good to have them in the building. Hey, invite them into the office before they leave, get a read on how they're feeling, actually talk to them without their agent standing in between you and them. All these things matter when it comes to full squad mini camps. He stands up there and goes, I went to Egypt, and it's a scheduling mix up because I looked at last year's schedule. You know how easy that is to fix? You call and you go, hey, I want to put together a trip to Egypt with me and my buddies. What are we doing for mini camp? Here's last year's mini camp. Can I count on that being the same dates? It's that simple.
That sounds really hard, man. I don't know.
That's it. That's all you got to do. But instead, he bends it toward how he sees it. And, hey, it is what it is. They fined me $50,000. Oh, by the way, it's not even a big deal. Like, those aren't really important. It's so bad for him to send that kind of message to younger players. And that is such a poor leadership moment for him. And if I was Robert Saleh, if I was Joe Douglas, if I'm, Woody, I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this situation saying, we we're bending over backwards for this guy, and he goes out and says something like that, and now that gets in the head of all these young guys. Rodgers isn't going to be here. At some point, is Sauce Gardner going to go, yeah, man, he's right. Mini camps aren't that important. Like, I don't have to worry about, like, who knows who that infects in the organization going forward. So it just sucks. And it's a moment for him. And yeah, unfortunately, that's become the history. You got to deal with, what he deems to be most important in his agenda, and not whether that reflects on the organization. I'll tell you what, I'll give you a really good example of this before we get out of here. Matt Stafford and the Rams went through a not great moment before camp, kicked off. Clearly he wanted a contract adjustment, wanted some money moved around, some more money moved into this season in terms of, what he was walking away with, guaranteed. And it was tense because it was clear that Stafford was probably not going to take the field unless this ultimately happened. The two sides worked it out. It's fine, but you can tell there was some little bit of a bruising that occurred. Stafford gets up there yesterday to talk about this. He's peppered with questions about it, and he just says, look, I'm not, I just want to play. I'm happy to be here. I'm glad it worked out, blah, blah, blah. Move the ball forward. He could have said some things that could have made it awkward and made it difficult for the Rams. The Rams could have said some things that made it awkward, difficult for him. Instead, both sides acted like adults, which is terrible for us because as reporters, it makes it harder for us to do the job. But again, it's for the sake of the larger operation. Aaron does not do that for the sake of the larger operation. He says this is the world according to Aaron and will be fine. That's kind of like how he comports himself with NFL teams. So that's just, as much as we keep talking about this guy, he just keeps doing the same stuff over and over again. I hope it was a great trip to Egypt. If you get some of those photos, definitely pass them on to me. I'm curious.
Yes, I'm sure there were some interesting ones. Charles, great stuff as always, man. Really appreciate you taking time to be with us this morning, and have fun out of Cowboys camp
on the
today.
405.
The whole time we're on the phone, you guys never knew. What a pro. I'm such a pro here.
Well done.
Thank you, Charles.
All right, guys.
Hey, buddy.
I'll talk to you later.
Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports, our guest. We'll react to what Charles had to say there next. Take your thoughts, 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Thursday morning. I got some tickets to give away to see Hootie and the Blowfish at Bridgestone Arena this Saturday. Be caller 3, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Got lots going on right now.
We do. People asking why we were losing it while Charles talked. Great segment with Charles, but we lost it because Dennis Burnside needs a raise for his Stilly the Pooh illustration. I hope that everybody, I mean, honestly, I hate Twitter. So if you're out there listening and you're not on Twitter, I totally get it. But I would actually start an account just so you could see Dennis Burnside's 20 Stilly the Poo.
At Dennis J. Burnside on Twitter.
At Dennis J. Burnside. He needs a raise. Like, we need to pay him more money than none.
We do. It's good stuff. Good stuff. That and people accusing Nick Keyser of saying things apparently he didn't say on the updates.
So he's confirmed that he didn't say that?
He has confirmed he didn't say
Have you heard it?
I have not heard it.
Yeah, I want our own confirmation. He claims he didn't say it.
Condominiums. Condos.
Yeah. That's those two words would be fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's another word in there that would be questionable.
It was alleged on the text line, so we want to get to the bottom of it. Also, for those of you like Trey from Antioch, boy, Trey, some of your takes, buddy, and Caleb on the YouTube chat going back and forth with me on Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps, incredible. But remember, Michael Phelps is one of the all-time greats. Remember, there's way more opportunities to win in swimming. Also, Simone Biles is 27 years old. A 27-year-old gymnast is a 73-year-old quarterback in the NFL. And it's a 55-year-old swimmer in the Olympics, which, of course, Michael Phelps will never be. Like, it's insane.
Tom Brady.
What is happening right now? It's beyond Tom Brady. So, no, I mean, it's just, I'm sorry. Like,
the Pharaoh.
This one, I feel very strongly about this correct take. The Pharaoh.
Should Aaron Rodgers' new nickname be the Pharaoh?
That's right. Man.
Now he's going to Egypt.
He's the Sphinx. A Sphinx says what?
I just have a feeling that's getting stronger and stronger by the day that they are just in for total disaster this year.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I mean, it's all this stuff. If he puts in the work and he's
still
all
good.
Himself, yeah, like all this stuff. Like, they have a loaded defense. They have, I think, a receiver who could really take a step and be talked about more in Garrett Wilson with Aaron Rodgers throwing him passes. But also, for sure, the complete implosion scenario is right there for everyone to see.
What did you make of Charles's take on the quarterback part of this in terms of, like, it's getting to the point with the contracts where you either need to cut them probably a year or two early or go ahead and sign them and then take the risk of running a Daniel Jones-like contract out there?
Right. Well, like you said, Trevor Lawrence is a great example. And the thing is, that's the most likely scenario by far, is that, I mean, there's also the scenario of failing, but the most likely scenario is that who you choose here is going to be pretty good. And then it's like, well, don't want to go wander through the desert again unless you're with Aaron Rodgers in Egypt. So I'm going to give this guy the money. And Charles is absolutely right. Like, Will Levis, highest paid player in the NFL, is a scenario that exists and not in some fantasy land.
It all depends on how he plays. By the way, Diana Rossini putting it out there 20 minutes ago. Packers fans and me around the league waiting to hear if Jordan Love's new big contract is complete based on conversations today. All making progress and heading to be complete, but not done at this time.
Okay. I mean, look, it's
highest paid player in the NFL that's a lot.
It's wild, but I would do it, and I don't blame Jordan Love and his camp at all. And look, let's remember, like you said, the other side of this is how quickly guys are getting discarded.
Yeah.
It is cutthroat. Will Levis had some really good comments on that. And by the way, good question from Stilly, the Pooh, asking him about
it's on the ESPN ticker.
Yeah, that's right. It's probably going to become a story on many, many major outlets consistently, Jared. But no, it was a good question about the stakes at hand, and Levis understands it. They can be taken away from you, to paraphrase him, and also, it's a huge opportunity. I mean, I think the Trey Lance thing that we got into with Charles is so interesting. Maybe he could be good.
I mean, he's barely played. I don't know how anybody would know.
I watched him in a preseason game, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then he goes to Chicago and plays in a monsoon. He looked like crap, but I mean, it
got
wasn't
hurt.
even football.
Yeah.
And Jordan Love probably wasn't too far. You know better than me from just forget about it,
Yeah.
right? And look at him. And maybe that was smoke and mirrors. I just think that's enough of a consistent weekly
He's pretty
excellence
good.
from him. Like, I think you have to do it.
Joe, have fun at day 2 of Titans training camp coming up.
By the way, I got a little clarification on, and it is intentional, not going downfield, and the idea being how are you going to get soft tissue injuries that first day, opening
Burst,
it up
yeah.
and going. So I think today we'll probably see more shorter passing, and then eventually they'll move into more of that, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
And we know soft tissue injuries in this team have
Been a problem.
been a problem. So
Try to avoid those as much as possible.
I'll
We'll
have some sweet notes for you tomorrow morning.
more notes coming up from Rexrode tomorrow morning. Keezer and I will talk all things Titans coming up next. Take your thoughts, 615-737-1025. This week's Nashville's Best Deal. Tickets to the Nashville Sounds Home Run Derby X at First Horizon Park on Saturday, August 31st. Buy 2 tickets now for only $30.